We need a new Greens party. I mean, quite frankly, I just sit there and I think, have these guys been actually taken over by the mining company? Because it just seems to be one complete bloody disaster after the other. Um, you know, we've got, what have we got? We've got a shoplifter. We've got a person who basically comes across as a map. That's mine attracted person. And they might say, oh, no, this is just Rainbow Community Special. No, bollocks. There's some language that says not appropriate. Um, we've got a guy that's basically gets shot in Dunedin. The circumstances are incredibly sketchy. He disappears over to Ireland. He's actually takes place in a racist anti-immigrant riot. Gets caught shoplifting. We've got another person that's basically former mayor of Wellington, but basically also gets outed for just really reckless, stupid, drunken behaviour. We have Aaron Hawkins, who I basically have never considered to be a Green. I think he's just basically a narcissist, in my opinion. Who's obviously actually put in power by basically a neoliberal Labour candidate, basically, and currently, turns around, supposedly meant to be Green, but was like, yeah, go, yeah, awesome, bring back the cruise ships, yeah, we're all good with the stadium, even though it's actually destroyed the city, so there's actually no real money to actually stop flooding, and it's and on it goes. And it just makes me, and of course, this all began under the watch of James Shaw, who was no other than a public relations expert for Bayer Monsanto, which leads me to my next point. It just feels like the Greens have been deliberately stacked with candidates that are just fucking arseholes, and they've destroyed all the hard work that was Gene Fitzsimmons and Rod Donaldson actually did, which got people taking the Greens seriously and also respecting the party as a party that had such strong mana, had such strong values, So, of course, the option is, I said, this is now a party that's pro-big pharma. It's basically, pro-big GMO. So it's got, you don't even see it basically turn up at the mining protests against Sam's Creek. I saw one Greens T-shirt, which was an individual from my generation, in fact older, wearing it, that she bought it ages ago. There was no official representation. We don't see the Greens actually. We do see them advocating Agenda 2030 and going on about 15-minute cities, which are basically at the end of the day a corporate-controlled shill, and the 15-minute cities are the same freaking things that Donald Trump talks about in his freedom cities. They're they just get us all living in cities, being digital slaves, while we actually, and it's just mental. And of course, they don't want to talk about actually what's happened with the science in terms of things like 1080 and so on, and explain how we do not get a good, proper scientific representation about 1080, largely because of the privatisation of the DSIR. I mean, the people that actually questioned a lot of the original surveys basically got told to go and get another job. And instead, what we've done is we're getting a solution where now we're not doing 1080, we're okay with Britificum. And of course, not to mention, of course, some of the Greens down in Nelson who are very keen, again, supporting these bird sanctuaries, which are basically land grabs. And again, getting on stage with Nick Smith, the guy that shits and, wants to have the waters full of cows, and go, oh, yes, we got the blue-green vote, which is what James, Shaw was actually all about. So what solution? Outdoors party? No, I don't really want to hang out with a bunch of, basically neo-Nazi, homophobic morons who can't get their basic facts correct. So, really at the end of the day is what we really need is somebody that really actually has genuine green values and actually realises that we have to conduct politicians, a new Green Party, I don't even know what you'd call it, has to be somebody that gets through to people that your politicians are meant to have a standard that's way up here, It's not this trickle down, we'll just ignore that behaviour and whatever. Because that's what really bugs me, is that when I read all these New Zealand Herald written by, neoliberal journalists, that, they go on about, my traumatic childhood and da-da-da. There is not one single iota of, I fucked up and I'm really sorry to what I've actually done to the planet. Because by basically doing this, I'm destroying the credibility of the party. Somehow they've actually managed to increase their percentages, but at this particular point, they're never going to be anything more than basically an enabler of Labour. And again, they get in, Labour comes along, they don't say absolutely nothing about Five Eyes, they don't basically turn around and say anything about the TPA. Even when I point out that basically, constitutionally what's going on there was dodgy, they're all part of the Labour group, like, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Then the Canadian Inuits turn around and actually stop the TPA, using the same arguments, and then afterwards the Greens come out talking about the constitutional illegality of the Green Party, like lip service after the fact. Like the same thing, they turn around, they're very, very keen to talk about how the SIS spied on the Green Party, but they wouldn't talk about the people that were actually protesting against 1080 that got actually told that they were terrorists when it actually turned out to be a member of the actual industry. So again, ultimately at the end of the day, the new Greens are like the Labour Party, the new Labour Party, basically a bunch of neoliberal fucking shells. And unfortunately, in this environment, we can't even begin to have a conversation about actually the real needs, real socialism, because you can't be talking about socialism when you're only around wearing shoplifting designer clothing. End of story. End of my rant for the day. Greens, wake up. You have a credibility problem. And as long as you keep electing dickheads like this, the planet doesn't have a fucking chance.